On August 6, 2025, HYBE Chairman Bang Si-hyuk, aka Hitman Bang, sent a trilingual letter to all HYBE employees just hours before the company's second quarter earnings call. So in this video, we will break down what he said and what he meant, and why the timing matters, and how it connects to this controversy around HYBE's IPO and accusations of unfair trading. We will also cover an important op-ed that raises serious questions. Is this a legitimate investigation or selective punishment meant to send a message? Op-ed that was published by a journalist on August 5th. Okay, so let's start with Bang Si-hyuk's email. So yeah, it has been said that on the morning of August 6th, Bang Si-hyuk sent out a trilingual email in Korean, English, and Japanese to every employee across the company's global operations. And this was significant because it marked the first time that he publicly addressed the growing controversy surrounding allegations of unfair stock trading during HYBE's IPO process. But this wasn't really a legal rebuttal or a combative press release. It was instead a personal letter, emotionally calibrated and carefully framed, that rather aimed to take ownership, not of the accusations themselves, but of the atmosphere they created. Okay, so here let me translate the Korean email. I did not have access to the English or Japanese emails, so let me translate the Korean letter in English. All right, so here we go. Dear HYBE members, this is Bang Si-hyuk. It's been a while since I last reached out to you directly via email. Due to a series of developments since last year, compounded by recent personal matters, both the company and my own name have repeatedly appeared in the news, often in an unfavorable light. I can only imagine how confusing, disheartening, and concerning this must feel for many of you, especially as proud members of HYBE. As the founder and chairman, I feel deeply responsible for causing this unease, and above all else, I want to sincerely apologize to everyone who may have felt unsettled or burdened by these recent events. HYBE began as a place where I, as a creator, could pursue my ideals and dreams. It was meant to be a starting point for creators to fully express themselves through their work, and for artists to freely realize their aspirations on a shared stage. More than that, I hoped to improve the quality of life for everyone in this industry, so that our work could be a source of both pride and happiness. What started as a small endeavor gradually expanded, powered by a strong desire to create a supportive space for creators, artists, staff, and industry professionals alike. And thanks to the empathy and support of many, we have grown into what we are today. Because our efforts stem from a bold vision to modernize the music industry and a strong sense of purpose, I have always tried to act with integrity throughout the process. However, I've come to reflect on the possibility that this confidence may have been perceived at times as arrogance. I'm taking this moment to seriously examine where I may have fallen short, or what I may have failed to notice and address during our growth. Though I have been fully aware of the concern these matters are causing within the company, the past few months have been painful for me as well, especially as I found myself unable to respond swiftly to the various suspicions and controversies. Above all, I have been deeply concerned that my personal situation might indirectly affect our artists and team members, who should be focusing solely on their creative work and business activities. As a creator myself, this has been an especially painful realization. Given that an official investigation is underway, I've had to be cautious with my words, and I ask for your understanding in this regard. That said, I also understand more than anyone that my personal issues must not become an ongoing burden to the company or the industry. While the demands of music production and global business expansion have kept me abroad for extended periods in recent years, I intend to temporarily put aside those responsibilities and return to Korea as soon as possible to participate fully in the investigation process. Just as I provided a detailed account of the IPO process during the financial authority's prior review, I will cooperate sincerely in this ongoing investigation and provide a thorough explanation once again. I trust that this process will clarify the facts, and I will humbly await the authority's judgment. To all HYBE members who have remained committed to their work despite the surrounding confusion, please accept my heartfelt thanks. Your dedication, the relentless pursuit of excellence by our creators, and the brilliant performances of our artists, these are the true driving forces behind HYBE. The remarkable results we are achieving in Korea and abroad would not be possible without the hard work and effort of each and every one of you. I hold deep respect for the talent, passion, and sincerity you all bring to build a content industry that is gaining global attention through music, an intangible asset. I will do everything I can to resolve this situation so that my personal issues do not hinder your creativity, potential, or spirit of challenge. I will take full responsibility for providing clarity and working toward resolution. Ensuring that each of you can focus solely on your creative and professional endeavors is my duty, and I will not lose sight of that. Like all HYBE members, I will continue to reflect and remain true to the commitment I made to contribute to the growth of music and the industry at large. To all of you who continue to shine in your respective roles each day, thank you once again, and please accept my deepest apologies. Sincerely, Bang Si-hyuk. So yeah, what do you think? First of all, Bang Si-hyuk begins his email by acknowledging the, so to say, the elephant in the room, the steady stream of negative headlines that have attached themselves to both his name and the HYBE brand. So he admits that the company has been in the news for all the wrong reasons lately and expressed deep concern for the confusion and disappointment this may have caused among staff. Which, was one of the things that I have been, concerned about because, think about, how the employees and even artists must have felt. Forget whether they know about the facts thoroughly, but seeing the company that they're part of or work for continue to appear in the headlines under the bad light, that must have felt terrible, And in his words, it's difficult to fathom how upsetting this must be for employees who have taken pride in being part of HYBE. And that's not just a nod to internal morale, but it's a more designed to is a move designed to reinforce a sense of shared identity, and it's like a reminder that HYBE is, in his view, in Bang Si-hyuk's view, still worth believing in. And the tone of the message is personal and introspective. It kind of reminds me of the speech that he delivered several years ago at his alma mater, Seoul University, which I've touched upon in one of the videos that I recently made. And here he talks about HYBE not just as a company, but as an extension of his own creative ideals. And he reminds the reader that HYBE started from a desire to build a space where creators could fully express themselves and where artists could dream freely. And as he puts it, it was about creating a better environment for everyone in the industry, which is a theme he has returned to often, over the years. Like I said, that was one of the major things that he talked about in his speech a few years ago. And like that narrative framing matters because in a moment of crisis, revisiting origin stories is a common way to reconnect people with the company's mission and to separate that mission from the noise surrounding it. And what's especially striking is how Bang Si-hyuk addresses his own mindset throughout HYBE's rise. He says he always aimed to act with integrity, but admits that what he considered confidence may have looked like arrogance. So that was a pretty interesting wording. 하지만 때로는 그 당당함이 오만함으로 비쳤을 수도 있었겠다는 점을 겸허히 돌아봅니다. Although, from my perspective, like arrogance to whom? Like the media journalists or the haters? I don't know. Because as we all say, haters will hate, right? But yeah, he still said it. Also, so he says that he always aimed to act with integrity, but admits that what he considered confidence may have looked like arrogance. It's one of the few moments where he, flirts with a more vulnerable tone here, where he offers a reflection that seems designed to like diffuse criticism without conceding any specific wrongdoing. He says he's taking time to re-examine whether he missed anything or failed to correct mistakes during the company's growth. And it's a pretty subtle rhetorical shift, not an admission of guilt, but a gesture of humility, so to say. And he also touches on his absence from Korea over the past few years. He has spent extended time overseas, which critics have framed as him avoiding accountability. And in the letter, he explains that his travels were related to global music production and business development, and which is what we all know about, at least what I know about. Is one of the business guys in the industry. But now those plans are on hold, according to him. Because he pledges to return to Korea immediately and cooperate fully with the authorities. Just as he did, he says, during a prior investigation by financial regulators. Remember, we have also talked about that. He had already participated in the investigation. But again, this isn't a defense, it's positioning. So by returning on his own terms, he's attempting to reassert control of the narrative, which is, what makes sense. And at the heart of the message is a promise that his personal issues will not become a long-term burden to HYBE or its employees. And he thanks the team for their hard work during this turbulent time and emphasizes how their dedication, along with the company's artists and creators, and continues to drive HYBE's success. And he closes by pledging to protect their ability to focus on their work and by reminding them that his role, even now, is to shield them from disruption. So, what does this message, this email, really accomplish? First of all, it doesn't answer the central question that regulators and investors are still asking. Did Bang Si-hyuk withhold critical information during the IPO process to benefit certain parties financially? Okay, in this email. But that's not what the letter is for, what the email is for. This is internal reputation management, timed just hours before HYBE's second quarter earnings call. And I think it's a pretty smart move from a leadership standpoint. It humanizes him, builds internal solidarity, and reassures the company's rank and file that HYBE's long-term mission is still intact, even if its founder is under government scrutiny. And in moments like this, silence creates a vacuum, and Bang Si-hyuk has now filled that space, not with defensiveness, but with storytelling. And whether that's enough to weather the storm still depends on the facts that emerge in the investigation. But I think, one thing is clear, that HYBE and Bang Si-hyuk are shifting into damage control mode. And this letter, I feel like it could be just the beginning. Although, as a shareholder, I mean, if you look at like investors community, there are some people who believe in Bang Si-hyuk, but there are also people who seriously believe that Bang Si-hyuk is a risk factor. But from my perspective, like him taking time off from his music business and songwriting and producing business just to return to Korea to again participate in the investigation is such a waste of time and resource. Because yeah, you know what? I think I have already talked about it enough. So for now, let's keep going to finish this video. So now let's talk about some of the comments, online comments that certain netizens online wrote in response to Bang Si-hyuk's email to employees. So on an article, okay? Some of the claims being thrown around are either misleading or just factually wrong. Okay, so let's break them down clearly and calmly. This one. 솔직히 4천억 챙기는 게 말이 되냐? 네가 챙긴 4천억은 상장 후 대폭락으로 물량받은 개미들 피 같은 돈이다. 너한테 돈 챙겨주려고 상장 전에 산 사모펀드들 상장 후 급등하자 다 팔았잖아. 이 물량받은 개미가 피해자라고. Okay? Translation. Honestly, how can you justify pocketing 400 billion Korean won? That 400 billion won you got came from the blood of retail investors who bought after the IPO crash. The private equity funds who bought pre-IPO only did to make you rich, then dumped everything after the stock shot up. Retail investors who bought those shares are the real victims. So, one might say that this frustration could be understandable because nobody likes losing money. But the idea that Bang Si-hyuk personally pocketed 400 billion won from retail investors kind of misrepresents what actually happened, given what we have learned. Because he did not sell his shares during the IPO. Instead, private equity funds like Maidstone and Easton PE sold shares they already owned. And yes, they made a big profit, but the 400 billion Korean won that Bang Si-hyuk received was through a contractual earnout, which is a private agreement where he received a portion of their profits because he helped increase the company's value over time. And he succeeded in getting the company public. And this kind of contract is not illegal, though whether it should have been disclosed earlier is now under review. And also, while it is true that the retail investors bought 160 billion Korean won worth of HYBE shares on IPO day and saw the price fall, it's misleading to say their money was directly transferred to Bang Si-hyuk. Like, that's not how capital markets work, because there were warning signs, including the so-called dasang hype and extreme volatility. And by dasang, it means that when a company goes public, it more than doubles on the first day. And I think, these warning signs were something that many seasoned investors knew to be risky. Okay, so yeah, emotional comment does not really hold up, given the facts. Next, 빵으로 쳐들어가서 반성하라고. He should have been thrown in jail and reflect on what he has done. So, calls for prison should be based on legal violations, not emotion. And so far, there's no court ruling that Bang Si-hyuk broke the law. The investigation is ongoing, yes, and even financial regulators have emphasized that some elements of this case fall into a legal gray zone, not an open and shut fraud. And also, according to The Bell, many aspects of HYBE's IPO, including post-IPO price drops, were not unique and actually reflected other cases in the overheated IPO market at the time. What about this comment? 보호예수 우회에 물량 쏟아낸 결과 선량한 개미들 피눈물 흐르게 해놓고 뻔뻔한 거 보소. 쯔쯔 음악 산업 발전을 옥중에서 걱정해라. Look at him shamelessly claiming to care about the music industry after he bypassed lock-up periods and dumped shares, making retail investors cry blood. He should be worrying about that from behind bars. So once again, let's clarify. Bang Si-hyuk didn't bypass a lockup. He never sold his shares during the IPO. Like the funds that did, like Mainstone and Eastern PE, were not bound by any mandatory lockup. And the reason they weren't is because the earnout contracts were not disclosed during IPO screening. And that's why some analysts say if those contracts had been reported, the exchange might have imposed a lockup, but that didn't happen. Still, HYBE did voluntarily lock up 70% of stick investment shares for 3 months. So the idea that nobody followed any restrictions is inaccurate. Also, and this matters, while retail investors did get burned by the post-IPO dropped, this kind of volatility wasn't unique to HYBE. Like I said, IPOs that soared, skyrocketed due to the Dasang frenzy, often dropped sharply afterward. That's what happened to Kakao Banks and Kakao Pay. Okay, and as one analyst told The Bell, one of the Korean media agencies with expertise in like investing world, these types of short-term price swings are common in IPO markets, and HYBE's overall float, which was 28%, was actually within normal range, and that's what this screenshot says. What about this comment? 반성을 하겠냐? 계속 엉프리게나 하겠지. 언제 귀국하겠다는 말도 없잖아. You think he will reflect? He will just keep playing the media. He hasn't even said when he's returning to Korea. Well, first of all, Bang Si-hyuk is not fleeing the country. He's been traveling for work consistently, especially given HYBE's global business and the fact that he's based in both Korea and the US. And his international schedule is nothing new and predates the investigation. And I'm like, as someone who loves looking at like the credits whenever new music gets released, I always wonder, man, this guy is busy. He's been just like producing all the time and hits after hits. But of course, the general public wouldn't know about it, and haters wouldn't care about it, right? As for the media play accusation, I mean, if you're being fair, media outlets in Korea have done far more framing than HYBE has. And a few high-profile reports selectively highlighted damaging allegations while bearing context. For example, very few headlines noted that the original investors made a 1,671% return pre-IPO, and that no one complained at the time, or that HYBE's IPO had typical volatility for the market at the time, especially during the Dasang craze. So, is Bang Si-hyuk manipulating the media, or is the media framing him in a way that reinforces public anger? I mean, that's something worth thinking about. But either way, it's not as black and white as he's hiding and doing PR. So, I wonder what you think. In fact, even among Korean journalists, there are voices pushing back against how this case is being handled. So here's an op-ed written by journalist named Park Eung-seo, published on August 5th, 2025, in a media agency called Straight News. And here, it raised serious concerns about how far this investigation has gone and what it could mean not just for HYBE, but for South Korea's global standing in culture and business. So let me translate this whole op-ed here. The title is Corporate Oversight or Corporate Destruction, What the HYBE Investigation is Really Telling Us, by Park Eung-seo. It starts with the quote, "Correct what is wrong, but don't cut off the limbs." That's the sentiment surfacing around the ongoing investigation into HYBE Chairman Bang Si-hyuk. Following an aggressive police raid and now a surprise tax audit by the National Tax Service, there are growing concerns that the company's entire operations are being suffocated. While justice must apply equally to all, when enforcement feels laser focused on a single figure, it risks undermining fairness and damaging the broader industry ecosystem. Many observers now believe the investigation into HYBE is about more than just uncovering facts. It's also about sending a message. The search warrant used by the police included unusually expansive provision, a nearly month-long investigation window, and special clauses allowing raids even before sunrise and after sunset. The scope wasn't limited to one executive. It extended to Bang Si-hyuk's office, accounting, legal, and nearly every department in the company, regardless of name. Now, the tax authorities have launched a special audit on top of this. At this point, the public is left wondering, is this truly a legal process, or is it punishment by pressure? And it's not just HYBE feeling the weight. Other companies are watching and reading between the lines. If you stand out, you will get targeted too. Of course, if Bang Si-hyuk really did deceive investors before HYBE's IPO, shifting shares through a private fund and reaping billions without disclosing it properly, then that is a serious breach of capital market law. And yes, it should be punished accordingly. But the problem here lies in how it is being done and how far it is going. Even if harsh penalties are justified under the principle of fairness, overreach reveals the subjectivity of state power. The fact that this crackdown is hitting a cornerstone of the K-pop industry right after the president declared anyone who plays games with the stock market will be financially ruined raises real questions about proportionality and political timing. This is especially concerning given the current moment. Korean content is achieving unprecedented global recognition. Netflix's new animated film, K-pop Demon Hunters, is a perfect example. Its fresh concept of K-pop stars battling demons has impressed global viewers and reaffirms the strength of K-content. Companies like HYBE are clearly central pillars supporting this momentum. But if authorities continue to push headline-grabbing, heavy-handed investigations, especially at a time when Korean cultural experts are surging, the real cost will be broader than one company. The industry will shrink and the opportunities will go elsewhere. Crimes must be addressed, but excessive force creates collateral damage. Legal justice and industrial strategy must be kept in careful balance. If one outweighs the other, both the rule of law and the economy suffer. It's time for the government to ask itself a hard question. Is punishing wrongdoing the same as choking a company to death? Let's not find ourselves regretting that the biggest obstacle to K-content's global rise wasn't a foreign competitor, but our own hand. Very interesting article. Although whether what the authorities and the media are doing is punishing wrongdoing is something that we'll have to find out later, right? Now, this is one of the strongest public defenses of HYBE, or rather criticism of the government's approach to HYBE we have seen so far. It doesn't deny the seriousness of the allegations. If you look at the article, it doesn't say that Bang Si-hyuk is innocent, for example. What it questions is whether the government and police are weaponizing their authority to make an example out of him, not for justice necessarily, but for politics. So first of all, the sheer scale and timing of the investigation, including special raid provisions and a sweeping audit, suggest more than fact-finding. It looks like a performance almost, meant to warn other companies. Don't get too bold, don't benefit too much, or we will come for you. And President Lee Jae-myung's public remarks about cracking down on stock market manipulation came just before the HYBE case escalated. And the implication is that Bang Si-hyuk is being used to demonstrate how tough on corporate crime this administration intends to be, regardless of whether the treatment is proportionate. And K-pop isn't just an entertainment genre. As many of you have pointed out before, it's one of Korea's most powerful cultural experts. So going after HYBE like this sends shockwaves throughout the industry, making others more risk-averse and less innovative. It's like punishing the golden goose while the rest of the world benefits. And the article walks a fine line. It doesn't ask for immunity for big companies, but it calls for balance. And that's the key word. Korea can't afford to scare off its most successful global players in the name of moral performance. And whether it's moral or not, that itself is not even clear from my perspective. So, this op-ed essentially asks, what happens when the government, in trying to prove that it's not soft on crime, ends up hurting its own economic champions? And whether Bang Si-hyuk is guilty or not will be decided by law. But the way he is being pursued and the consequences of the pursuit will not just shape his legacy, but also the future of Korean cultural entrepreneurship itself and Korea's image. Because as many of you have mentioned, you already became so disappointed in Korea as a nation due to the authorities and the media's unfair treatment of HYBE. I mean, come on, let the public see all the facts clearly. But they're not doing that enough, at least from my perspective. So yeah, overall, this op-ed doesn't defend Bang Si-hyuk. In fact, it openly says that if he broke the law, he should be held accountable. But the point here is something bigger and more dangerous. We're not just talking about one person. We're talking about the way power is used in South Korea when a company becomes too big, too successful, or too public, like HYBE. And if the rules only get enforced when the media spotlight is on, or when someone powerful decides to make an example out of you, that's not a healthy system. That's selective justice. And when that happens to one of Korea's most globally visible companies, it doesn't just hurt HYBE. It sends a chilling message to everyone in tech, in culture, and in business. If you stand out, you might get knocked down, not by your competitors, but by your own government. So at the end, the op-ed asks this haunting question. Was it really foreign rivals stopping K-pop from growing? Or was it us? And I feel like that's not a conspiracy theory. It's rather a reality check. So there we go. Before I wrap this video, I want to ask you guys, what did you think of this email that Bang Si-hyuk sent to all the members of HYBE across its global operations? And what do you think of this? First of all, what do you think of these online netizens' comments? Were they fair or were they ridiculous? And what do you think of this op-ed piece? Let me know in the comments. And when you write your comments to communicate with each other, as always, let's stay positive, respectful, and classy. Thank you guys. Peace and love. Bye-bye.